From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
We are balming souls today, or as some hear that line, bombing souls. A little bit of balm, a little bit of balm. It's great to have you here, whether you are tuning in from Lithuania or Litchfield, Minnesota, from Ravello, Italy to Regina, Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatchewan, Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine. It's great to have you here. This is the Badass Counseling Show. I am Sven Erlinson, the Village Idiot. I am joined in studio by my producers, KC over in the booth, ever silent, and Rob the Rocket sitting next to me. Rob.
Good evening, sir.
Rob.
Sir, yes, I am.
Rob, how are you today?
I'm just fine.
Yeah?
Fine fettle. You know, and it's always balmy in here, so you're correct in your characterization.
You know, it's funny you say fine fettle, because I'm sure I'd heard the word, but I was just introduced to that word or reintroduced this weekend, and I had to look it up. It means condition.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that's the name of the local dispensary is Fine Fettle.
Oh.
Wasn't what I was thinking. I heard about it.
I assume you just because you drive by it.
Yeah, I heard about it.
I got your number now, young man. We got you all figured out. Rob, we have a guest named Shoshanna. Such a pretty name. Tell us about Shoshanna, if you would, please, Rob.
Happy to, Sven. Shoshanna wrote in and said, it took several tries, but I finally left my extreme taker husband last November. I used your book and journaling exercises to get to that point, and for a while felt freer and lighter than I'd ever thought possible. But now reality has set in. I'm dangerously lonely. I'm living in a studio apartment just 20 minutes from my 2 teenage children, but it kills me to not have a home for them, even part-time. I'm living the fears that keep people in toxic relationships, including major financial difficulties. I am in counseling and have a job I love, but I spend many of my waking hours alone and afraid it will never get better. How do I not give up after coming this far? My own mother lost her spirit around my age, 46, and never recovered. My dad also died pretty miserable and alone. I know that the abuse I've suffered hasn't been my fault, but I'm filled with regret about the bad decisions I've made out of fear, especially about the impacts on my kids. I've listened to all of your podcasts, and I'm starting again from the beginning. I'd be so grateful if you could help me, and thank you for all you do.
Shoshanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's ours. Thanks for coming on. Sum it all up in one sentence. What is your greatest affliction? What is just ripping you apart or hurting you or bogging you down the very most in one sentence or less?
I feel like I blew it.
Okay. What precisely did you blow?
Sometimes it feels like my life, my choices, that I have painted myself into a corner. I'm middle-aged, I'm educated, but during that relationship, I gave up. I gave up listening to myself, and I forgot who I was.
And how long were you in that relationship?
About 10 years. This would be year 11.
So 10 years. Just to give us all a point of reference, you said my mother lost her spirit around my age, 46. You're 46. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were in that relationship your last relationship for 10 years? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And so you started that one when you were 36, which means if you have teenage children, your teenage children are from a relationship prior to that. Is that correct?
Yes. I married my college boyfriend.
Okay.
So I'm married. Yes, we were together for probably 16 years with my first husband. We were only married for 7, but we were together I met him when I was 18. I went right from home to college and lived with my college boyfriend. We got married 7 years later. We had kids. We got divorced when the kids were ages 3 and 4. And I got a good start at finding my independence. but I didn't complete the process. I was antsy. I didn't date that much when I was younger. I spent my late teens and my 20s all with the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was eager to get out there. And I had a nice social life for a little while. I was peaking in my career. I was a healthcare journalist at the time. I had a job that was, it was intimidating to me, but I was doing a good job. And
that was in your first marriage, or that was between relationships?
Right from college, right up through the first relationship and into the second one.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, the first relationship then ended when you were 34. Second relationship begins at 36, or that's when you guys like get serious or get married?
35.
About 35.
Yeah, we got about 35.
35.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And
so I only really a year between getting separated from the first one
and you know what? We've sort of all been in that situation where we go from one and sort of hop into the next one. It's that, I mean, you can beat yourself up for it if you want to, but it's far more common than you might realize. And it's easy to look back and say, gosh, I should have, and I wish I would have done this or that. But you did what you did, and that's okay. Okay. So where we're at right now, you feel like you blew it. And in my life choices, and I've painted myself into a corner, just out of curiosity, sum up that corner in one sentence. You're a journalist. You're used to compressed phrases. You've read my book, and you know that I hate compressed phrases. I have very long phrases and very thick book, but you're good at compressed phrases. So I want you to sum up in one sentence. You have a much harder medium, journalism. In one sentence, what precisely is the corner that you have painted yourself into?
I put other people in control of my life.
But are those other people presently in control of your life, Shoshanna?
In some ways, financially. I'm not divorced yet. My ex is helping me with my rent. And it's this terrible dance where he wants to feel good. He likes to, let me back up. I left journalism around in the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
My mental health my anxiety got really bad.
Sure.
I started having panic attacks for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I started to having a real fear of abandonment that I hadn't had in previous relationships.
And why do you think you had such a fear of abandonment all of a sudden? What was it about being abandoned? Was it being abandoned as in someone walking away from you, seeing their back walking away from you, metaphorically speaking? Or was it the idea of not having someone and therefore being alone/lonely? Was it someone leaving, or I'm now alone, that you scared you most? You said fear of abandonment. So now we're not talking about a person. Now we're talking about a phenomenon. So you're saying fear of abandonment. So I want to know, in the fear of abandonment, was it someone leaving you, or was it being alone that scared you more?
Being left.
Someone leave. Okay. And so what is the underlying message being conveyed to you as you interpret it? When someone leaves me, what does that mean? What's the message I'm getting about me?
That I'm not good enough.
That I'm not good enough. And just out of curiosity, why would you, and there's nothing wrong with fearing that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But why would you fear that so much? Of all the things you could fear, why would you fear getting the message that you're not good enough? Why would that be your fear?
Because I didn't feel like I was enough.
Is that so?
I think so. I think I didn't trust myself.
Let me ask you this, Shoshanna. What was the message, if there was one, that you got from your first marriage? The marriage ended, so obviously you two felt chemistry wasn't there or whatever, and you decide divorce, he decided it, you both decided it, whatever. What was the message you got about yourself from your first relationship?
That I wasn't that important. Okay,
so the first marriage, the message was, I'm not important, or not that important. In the second one is it's I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
For you personally, of those two messages, if I forced you to choose, held you down, made you choose, okay? You got to choose which one hurts more for you. You're not important or you're not good enough.
I think not being good enough.
And why does that for you hurt more than you're not important?
Because of how much I tried to give, how I felt like my love was a blank check, that it was unlimited and that it was unconditional, and it didn't feel that way.
Isn't it fascinating that you're getting the message you're not good enough from him by someone leaving you? In fear of abandonment, someone leaving me, it conveys the message I'm not good enough. And I say, so say more. And then you say, I basically gave a blank check. I tried so hard. I did everything. You change it. You interpret it as not good enough in self-evaluating yourself. I'm not good enough, not for who I am, but for I'm not doing enough. Because you said, because I did everything. So you're interpreting all you're doing, you're not good enough. You don't say, because who I am is not good enough. And you saying, I did everything, that implies to me someone who feels the need to do a lot in order to be liked and wanted and valued and loved. I have to earn it. Does that resonate or not quite resonate?
It absolutely does. And I know that's not right now. And I'm hoping going forward that I can change that mindset, because I know it's not correct. I asked toward the end of after I left, I asked him, my current husband, soon to be ex, what it was he loved about me, because I didn't understand if I was getting no attention, if I was being called names and yelled at, what is it you love? And he couldn't name anything. The things he named, one was my companionship, and it was a couple other things that were both doing things, not things about just being me and who I am and as a person, that I was really hurt that there were no, I could give a list, even as much of an asshole as he is, I could still give you a list of what I loved about him, and he couldn't name qualities about me that he loved.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, if you met a man who went out of his way, busted his balls to make you feel loved and to read your needs and to anticipate them and meet your needs, would you probably find that a lovable and endearing characteristic?
Yes.
And would you take that as an indicator that that person loved you?
I think so.
I think so too. Right. So here you are doing that, and you are being loving in your actions, and it indicates a person who has a big heart. Okay. And those are generally lovable characteristics. And here, this guy can't think of anything that he loves about you. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not, he thought he was telling me things he loved about. He honestly might not understand the difference between traits and actions. He couldn't name a trait.
Okay. And so you take his inability or unwillingness to name a trait as a judgment on you. And this notion of I have to work very, very hard to make someone love me. Did you do that in your first marriage?
The first marriage was more balanced.
But did you do that in your first marriage? Did you bust your ass to, make the person feel loved?
Yeah.
Okay.
In friendships too.
In friendships too. Okay. Fair enough. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a bad thing if I'm trying to forever win somebody's love, because it could imply that if I'm not, that I have to do more and more, that something intrinsically in and of myself, I'm not lovable. I have to earn it. So let me ask you point blank. Do you believe that you are intrinsically lovable? Yes or no?
Yes.
Really? What's the most lovable part about you?
My heart.
Okay. And your heart, and by heart, I assume that means that I give to other people. Is that what you mean?
Right, which brings us right back to
Precisely.
square one.
Right. Okay, so why don't you take another swing at it? What, other than your heart, which I'm sure is lovely, and obviously if you're a giving person, I find that to be an endearing feature in a human being. Tell me the second biggest thing you love the most about yourself. Or maybe the part about yourself that you love the most when there's no one around to do things for.
I love my creativity.
Terrific. Okay, you love your creativity. That's great. This notion of working hard to win someone's love, you had to know I was going to go here. What was it like growing up? What were the messages you got about yourself growing up?
I was not encouraged to succeed.
And what does that mean? I was not encouraged to succeed. Does that?
No, it was almost the opposite. It was almost, I've sort of unpacked with my regular therapist that I think my mother was intimidated by education and success to the point that she actually discouraged me from going to college. She would discourage me from taking opportunities.
Right. And yet the way you described yourself earlier, you said, I feel like I blew it with my life and my choices. I feel like I painted myself in the corner. I'm middle-aged and I have an education, but I gave up listening to myself. You felt the need in basically a 15-word description to insert the fact that you're educated. So part of your self-definition is, and part of what you know is valuable or how you value yourself is the very opposite of what mom valued. Mom didn't value education. In fact, she looked down on it. And yet you do value that about you. You see that as an asset. You cited it earlier. You said, I am middle-aged. Yes, I do. I am educated, but In other words, you're stating it in the affirmative. Okay. Why did you go get educated when mom said not to?
I'll tell you the exact scene. The morning of my SATs,
okay.
I asked her for a ride to the testing center, and she said, what do you want to take those for? And being a flippant 16-year-old, I said, because I don't want to work at Stop and Shop for the rest of my life.
I presume mom was a cashier at Stop and Shop?
She was. She was for 20 years. And that was the job that she took after my father left her. And that was my part-time job at the time too. And that was the one and only time she slapped me across the face. She was that. And I understand why she was hurt.
Well, of course. You were saying, fuck you, woman. I don't want to be like you.
Yeah.
I want to be better than you. And she basically said, oh, you think you're better than me?
Yeah. I mean, I watched her put fences around herself, set limits to really, she was so afraid. And I have her anxiety too, but she really, really limited herself.
What above all else was your mother afraid of?
That she would have to tell you. But she wouldn't drive on the highway.
Because you know her as well as anyone. What does it boil down to? What really was your mother most afraid of as you see it?
Failure.
Okay. Failure. And so better to not try, because if I never try, there's no chance of me failing. Right?
I think so. And I think also being in charge of her own life. She wanted to have a husband who would kind of
take care of everything.
Be the leader. And even though that was a bad experience for her, that was the role that she wanted me. I had a sister too, but mostly me. She expected me to marry someone who would kind of look after me and I wouldn't have to take too many risks.
So even though you gave her the fuck you on the education thing, you followed what she wanted you to do and the expectations on the whole thing of get a man to lead you.
Yeah. We were not, I always took the passenger seat. I would always let the other person drive, the other person lead, the other person make decisions because I didn't trust myself to make good ones.
All right. And we are going to find out a bit more from Shoshanna right after this short break.
So I was telling a buddy of mine how he seems happier. He told me about the book that changed his life. So I bit. I went to the Badass Counseling website and downloaded There's a Hole in My Love Cup audiobook. I started listening to it on my commute home from work, and holy cow, it was a Louisville slugger to the face. I literally sat in my car, in the driveway, night after night, listening through to the end of a chapter or doing the journaling exercises. My wife started to see changes. I started to change a lot. My default response stopped always being anger. Now I manage a team of salespeople, and I changed as a leader. I was listening more, not always just reacting. When their numbers started going up seemingly out of nowhere, I knew what the reason was. There's a Hole in My Love Cup is now required listening for any person on my sales team or working for me, and I gladly buy it for them. You gotta listen to this book.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
We're back with Shoshanna. Shoshanna, tell me then, you said I blew it. My life, my choices, I painted myself into a corner, etc. So life's over. You're 46, you're fucked, right?
It's not over, but it feels that way.
Okay.
Sometimes.
That's fair. And that's understandable. When we feel we've painted ourselves into a corner and life is hard and overwhelming and we're starting at a deficit, starting over at a deficit, especially at middle age, it can definitely feel that way. You're totally justified, and it's understandable that you would feel that way. What, in one sentence or less, is your single biggest fear?
Not being able to survive.
And by survive,
right
you mean
now,
financially?
I mean financially right now, primarily. I left, when I left publishing, I took a job I started back, I was hospitalized in 2020. And when I got home, the beginning of 2021, I didn't work for a couple months. I was still very overwhelmed and fragile. And my husband owns a company, and it was doing well. It is doing well. And it was okay. When I was ready to get back out there, I went into substitute teaching. I went to a middle school of all places, and I fell in love with it. And then I moved on to become a teacher assistant education. And it is the best place I ever found for myself.
Wonderful. And so
It's
is the
beautiful,
desire to stay in this field and perhaps become a full-blown teacher? You like it where you're at? What fundamentally, what do you want to do with your life? What's your dream, your vision of what you want to do with your career?
I'm stuck in deciding that. I did begin my
Stuck between what and what?
Between going back to publishing and pursuing teaching.
Presumably
really
because publishing is publishing is the money and teaching is the passion. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would much rather pursue teaching. I would much rather pursue teaching.
So why wouldn't you?
I started my master's
Why wouldn't
degree.
you? You started your master's degree. Why wouldn't you pursue teaching?
I don't know if I have the confidence to go back. I abandoned the degree with everything, having to leave home abruptly, and I lived in Airbnbs for 4 months until I finally really made my decision. It took me a long time to decide that this was not going to get better, to realize, because I left many times. A lot of them weren't officially leaving. It was the kids and I'd get the silent treatment, or it was very hot and cold, and I would just feel unwelcome and anxious. And so the kids and we'd go away for a weekend, someplace not even that far away.
Smart.
We did that several times.
Good. And eventually you realized it ain't getting any better. I'm getting the fuck out, right?
Well, eventually I wasn't going because I felt unwelcome, but because I was scared.
Okay.
Because he had rage episodes.
And so eventually you got your kids out of there, though.
Yeah, I did.
Good. And now you have a studio apartment, you said. And
Yep.
and you said you feel guilty. Kills me to not have a home for them, even part-time. I don't understand. What do you mean you don't have a home for them? What does that mean? You have an apartment.
Well, I have an apartment. They don't spend any nights here. They
Why?
live with their dad.
Why don't they spend any nights with you?
I don't think they don't have, there's no room. They don't have bedrooms here.
What's
They
the
spend time with
reason?
me.
What is the reason that your children are not? What does it boil down to for you? Because you sort of hemmed and hawed and sort of stuttered a bit there. What is the reason your children are not spending time with you at your place?
At my place is, I think they're more comfortable at their dad's.
What makes you think that?
They have the opportunity. I think my daughter has slept here twice.
What is the
They're
court?
getting
What is the
older
court
now.
order? What is the court order?
That's a whole other story.
But what's the short of it? What's the short of it?
It's supposed to be, I don't even remember, but I had them up until now. I had them every Wednesday and every other weekend, and more if I wanted it.
Okay. And so what is the reason you're not doing that? What is the reason you're not doing that and insisting on that now? And it's okay. I'm not judging. I just want to know what the reason is. Is it that you're ashamed of your life and you don't want them there, or you think they don't want you? Or is it that you don't have the energy to give them love? What are we talking about here? What really is going on here?
Well, number one, their father stopped paying child support when I moved in with my second husband.
Okay.
And I'm still not getting it. So I could only afford this apartment. There's nothing for them to do here. I don't even have a TV.
Whoa. Okay, so you're afraid that they wouldn't like it there with you, right? There's nothing for him. What do you think your children want from you?
I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, let me ask you. When you were a kid, what did you want from your parents?
Just love and acceptance and strength.
Right. And to feel like you're wanted, to feel like you're safe, to feel that you always have a place to come to. And, as my parents used to say, God bless our humble home. You don't have a lot, but who gives a shit? This is my home. And I am building. And I am building for the future. You have a studio apartment. I had a studio apartment. Granted, my kids were younger at the time, but who gives a shit? This is our home. We are a family. I am your mother. And I'm going to cook a meal for you, even if that meal is ramen. And we're going to talk and we're going to laugh. And we're going to go for walks. You don't need to have a TV. Believe it or not, there were happy homes before TVs. It's weird, I know. And the truth is, and I know this is all stuff but on the kids just want to be loved, right? And
I go to them. I go when I get off work.
Why don't you bring that? Again, that's good. Why don't you bring them to you?
I do for a couple hours, but they don't.
Is it really about you or is it about them?
Because we don't follow a strict schedule now, and they're 16 and 17 years old, and I do try to follow their lead and their comfort level. And I should add that my 17-year-old son battles alcoholism, and he's been in treatment. He spent the entire summer in treatment. And he also spent a lot of last fall in treatment after the separation. He has a lot of mixed feelings. He was definitely mistreated by my ex. He endured a lot of verbal abuse. He was a scapegoat a lot of the time, but he still has this compassion.
Do you have some atoning to do when it comes to your 17-year-old son?
Yeah, he told me about a time that my ex was, I don't even know my son makes mistakes. He makes big mistakes. He lies. He's lied. no, but
Let's not focus on what a 17-year-old son does wrong when he's got a stepfather who sounds like not nice to him and he's being subjected to it. And I'm not here to hammer on you, but it's just we were talking about you have some atoning to do, and then the conversation shifts to he makes mistakes, he lies, he makes mistakes. It's like, whoa, mom.
He did get verbally abused, and there was physical stuff where they had a man-to-man conversation about something in the backyard, and my son was only 13, I think, at the time.
So then it's not a man. So then it's technically it's not a man-to-man conversation.
Exactly.
Okay.
No,
anyway,
he was
go
a
ahead.
Child,
Right.
and my husband put his foot on top of my son's foot and pressed down on his foot. And when my son told me about it, I minimized it. I didn't drop everything and make sure it would never happen again.
And the reason, and the reason you didn't do that is because what? What was the fear driving your inaction?
I couldn't cope.
With what specifically?
I wasn't willing to admit that they were in danger, that I was in danger.
And because you feared what? I said, so what's the fear? I wasn't willing to admit because I was afraid of what? What is the reason you did not protect your son and presumably your other child as well? What is the reason you did not protect your children from this mean person?
I was afraid of being alone.
Afraid of being alone. Okay. Now you know the root of your atonement. That fundamentally you chose to not protect your children as a way to protect yourself from being alone. Now, if that's not true, it's okay to say, no, Sven, you're fucked in the head. That's not what it is. I don't mind being wrong. I really don't. I'm just trying to call what I hear here. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Yeah. I don't know what else it could have been.
And I respect your honesty. I really respect your honesty because there are a whole lot of fucking parents who would never own it. And now the challenge is, do you have the courage to go to your son and look him square in the eye and tell him, I fucked you over because I was afraid. I chose to indulge my fears at the expense of you. And that's so profoundly wrong, and there is no excuse. What would be the hardest part about saying that, or the scariest part about saying that to your son?
I have apologized.
What did you apologize for? What did you apologize for?
I apologized for minimizing what he told me, for blowing it off, for not taking him as seriously as I should have.
And his response?
That it's okay. And it's not.
Right.
It's not okay.
Right.
And he forgives the person. He forgives his stepfather too. He wants a relationship with his stepfather.
Well, and see, this is the problem, that the child is wanting something from the parent. And because I want something, I'm going to minimize any bad you have done in hopes of still getting something from you. So what he's wanting is confirmation of his worth, the very thing that was invalidated by that stepfather. And even if it means blowing off my pain and forgiving you of some really heinous shit, stepdad, I'm willing to do that. Please just tell me that I have worth. Do you want to know why your son does bad stuff by your own reckoning? He does really bad stuff and he lies. The kid is just screaming for love and approval, for confirmation of his worth, that he's even willing to overlook abuse and not being protected from adults whose fucking job it is. He's willing to overlook a man being an absolute fucking asshole to a 13-year-old, a fucking asshole. He's willing to overlook that if that guy would just confirm his worth. And it's tragic that the boy's life has gotten to that point. But I want to ask you, what was the message you got about your worth growing up? In one sentence or less, what was the message you got from mom and what was the message you got from dad?
Dad was never satisfied.
So what was the message you got about you? Put it in one sentence, whether it was explicit or implicit. What was the message you got about you from dad growing up?
Do better.
So the message was fundamentally do better. In other words, you're never enough. I always want more from you.
Yeah.
You're never enough. So isn't it fascinating that your second husband says to you, you're not good enough, conveys the message, you're not good enough. And that's precisely the message you got from your dad. More. This isn't enough. Do better, do better, do better, do more, do better.
Why not an A? Yeah.
Why not an A? Right. You got an A, why not all A's? You got all A's, why didn't you do that last semester? You know, whatever. Okay. And what fundamentally was the message you got from mom, whether it was explicit or implicit, that you got from mom about your worth? Or about you, not even about your worth. It can be anything. What was the message you got from mom about you?
That life is scary. Don't take risks. Maybe you can't.
Maybe you can't. And is the statement, maybe you can't, which is a statement of doubt, that's sowing a seed of doubt in a person. Yeah. You think you can? Maybe you can't. Oh, fuck, maybe you can't. And just for the record, you've said you've read the book, Love Cup. I want you to go back and I want you to reread the chapter, Are You Sure? It's the chapter about that NCAA coach that I was counseling. And they were on track to win the national championship, and how his mother's voice was ringing in his head and he wasn't even aware of it. All right. Are you sure? Anyway, so mom's message was maybe you can't. And so what is the underlying message that the parent is delivering to the child about the child? Because when she says maybe you can't, what's she really saying?
That you're not good enough.
You're not good enough.
That you can't hang.
Right.
My first speaking engagement, she'd say, are you sure? You're off.
What?
You sure you want to do that? Everything. When I got a public speaking engagement in my career. I got to speak at the Cleveland Clinic.
Wow. One of the most notable hospitals in the entire world. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
And
my dad came with me.
And your mom's message was?
Quietly, and my mom was like, aren't you scared?
And
are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure that you're...
And was that your mom's message about the world, and the world is a scary place and you should always be afraid of failure? Or was that her commentary on you?
It was her commentary on herself, but it translated over to me.
Okay. So in other words, your mom basically conveyed the message, you know, maybe you can't, maybe you're not good, or you're not good enough. She was fundamentally saying then, I don't believe in you.
Yeah, she wanted me to do the things, but she didn't expect me to be a leader. She didn't think the message was to follow people who know what they're doing, because trust you can't. The smarter people, the more capable people.
Because you are incapable and you're not smart.
Yeah, and it was almost a family joke. I was the butt of a lot of jokes growing up. My sister was considered to be the smart one.
What were you considered to be?
The nice one.
The nice one. And so when you tell one, KC told this story on the show recently to one of our guests, and she said in the home that she was growing up in, her eldest sibling was told, you know, I'll just name them Susie. The eldest sibling, it was all girls, and the eldest sibling was told, Susie, you're the smart one. KC, you're the beautiful one. So what do you think the message was that Susie, the oldest one, got?
That you're not beautiful.
What do you think the message was that KC got?
That you're not smart.
Is that true, KC? Yeah, she's nodding her head. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Even, yeah, my mom, she would like joke about, even amongst my friends, about the way I struggled in school.
Are you good at teaching? Are you good at being an assistant teacher in a middle school? Are you good at it?
Yeah.
What makes you good at it?
Because I can tune in and I can put myself in their shoes.
And by putting yourself in their shoes, what does that mean?
I have an intuition about when to give them space, when to lean in.
And are you able to convey the subject matter as well?
Most of the time.
I mean, that being a big part of a teacher's job. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you believe that you are smarter than your average middle schooler?
I don't know.
Come on, be serious.
7th grade is tough.
Okay, all right. Are you in your field of what you would be teaching? Are you smarter than your average middle schooler? Enough of the false modesty.
Yeah. I have enough of an edge on them that I think I can lead them competently.
Excellent.
I have the life experience that when they put their head down and they think, and they'll say, I can't do it, I'm not capable, I don't understand, I didn't do the homework, and they'll shut down and they feel like the world is over. I have the life experience to know that, no, we'll just break it down into smaller steps and we will get there.
Love it. Love it. And there's an old saying, we teach best what we most need to learn. This idea of I can overcome it and so forth. And for me personally, this is one person. I'm speaking not universally now, I'm speaking for Sven. For me, the noblest of professions, other than the capacity to create music, which for me is just like an absolute gift from the gods. I have no idea where the hell that comes from. Other than that, the noblest of professions for Sven personally is that of teacher. My mother was a teacher. She was the highest paid teacher coming out of, Wahoo Junior College in Nebraska, teaching college in Nebraska. And she came out and she was always very proud of that. And by the end of her career in her 60s, she's teaching at the graduate level in early childhood education. And I have always respected teachers at the very highest levels. I just have such profound respect for teachers, personally. That's just me, not speaking for anyone else. So when you say you want to go into teaching, I'm over here in the cheering section, shouting the loudest, please do. Because those are the people that change lives. Many people do, but I really hope you do listen to your heart. But let me ask you, you said you're stuck. You're feeling stuck and like you've blown it. You haven't blown it. You're only 46. And I know it feels old, but I have clients who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who say, fuck, man, I would kill to go back to 46. Especially, do you know how many women I have in my career of counseling? And one of the questions I like to ask women, especially in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I say, what age would you like to go back to? And some will say, when I was a little kid. Or some will say, my 20s were great. But more often than not, it's roughly mid-30s to mid-40s to late 40s. And I say, why is that? Sven, I just felt like I was becoming myself. I felt beautiful then. I was beginning to feel strong, really like in myself and so forth. And so you may think like you're fucking over the hill, but I got tons of clients who would kill to be that age because it's such a power age for a woman in particular. And the truth is you got a lot of work in life ahead of you to enjoy your work, and your kids aren't lost. They aren't lost. It's not done. It's not the script is not completely written, not even close. There's still hope for your relationship with them and your capacity to impact them, even more importantly. But you said you feel stuck between going back to publishing and going into teaching. And what is the biggest fear? Your heart wants to go into teaching, but what is the biggest fear in doing so?
That it's too hard.
What specific part do you fear might be too hard?
Actually getting the degree and getting the license. I know I can do it. I've done it.
Sure.
I've been a long-term sub. I taught ELA. I had my own class for someone's maternity leave, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
All right. So then it's the schooling part of it and the practicum.
It's the schooling part.
Right.
It's the money. I feel like I have mountains to move where
you do have mountains to move.
I need my confidence back.
Yeah.
I need to get child support from my first husband. I need to divorce my second husband, and I need to figure out my career. And of course, constantly my kids.
Right. All of that. And what would if you only could say one sentence to that 7th grader who's putting his head down and he feels overwhelmed by it all? What's the sentence you would say to that 7th grader?
It'll be okay. We'll take a break and we'll come back to it.
That's it. It's going to be okay. And what are you going to do? You just put one foot in front of the other. At some point, you're having to choose. What the really choice is that you're in a proxy battle. There's a battle for ownership of the company, and the company is you. And you're in a battle with mom's voice and dad's voice saying, you're not good enough. You can't do it. Are you sure? You can't do that. You're not good enough. Inside of you, there's this battle between these bullshit voices that were put inside of you and your authentic voice that says, oh, fuck that shit. I didn't do this shit in my sleep. And you know what? Even if I fail, I'm going to fail doing it my way. I'm going to fail living rather than quitting like you guys did. Love you, Mom and Dad, but I'm not going to do it. You have to choose. Fundamentally, it's a choice. The great Minnesotan Bob Dylan sang, "He not busy being born is busy dying." You said, my own mother lost her spirit around my age, lost her spirit. She began the business of dying.
She was passively suicidal.
That's it.
She didn't want to try. She just didn't want to try.
That's it. And my dad also died pretty miserable and alone. They didn't want to try. And the truth is this, Shoshanna, you're going to fail, fuck up, fall down a million fucking times. You are. You're going to fail. You're not going to get an A on every test. You may even get a fucking D. You may have to retake a class. You're going to get into court and, with your ex-husband, and you're going to have to slug it out. Or you may have to burn through a couple lawyers before you actually get one that you're going to go into court with. Or, you're going to have some setbacks. You are. That is the nature of life. But you're finally going to be living life on your terms. You finally running your life. And that fear, what you need to be about the business of in your own journaling is journaling out all those fears. You need to be writing a letter to mom that you don't send, dad that you can't send because he's dead, but writing those letters saying, by the way, fuck you.
They're both dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you definitely need to be writing those letters, because sometimes when the parent dies, we almost feel a sense of romanticism for their message and who they were. And it's time to flush out the real feelings. And fuck you. You guys were wrong. And I'm so angry at you for putting these fears in me. I'm so mad at you. And I'm so sad that you taught me this bullshit. This bullshit that I'm not good enough. I mean, let me ask you, do you know a 7th grader who is innately not good enough?
No.
Precisely.
No, they're all amazing.
Precisely.
They actually really are.
So then why are the rules different for 7th grade you? Why were you such a piece of shit? Why were you such a fucking dumbass and no fucking future that the only way you're ever going to get love is to attach yourself to a man and just give. And you got to give more and you got to give more because you're not good enough. Why were the rules different for you? And no, they're all amazing. They're all wonderful, you said, except Shoshanna. She's the exception. Why are you the exception? Why weren't you amazing?
All the emphasis was put on.
But was it true?
Being nice and kind.
But
and
was
sweet.
it true?
I remember feeling overwhelmed and I had an eating disorder all through my teens and up until I got pregnant with my son. I was always beating up on myself, always trying to do something better. It was always.
Was it true what they taught you that you were not innately good enough? Was that true?
Intellectually, I know it was not true.
Well, good.
But I'm still working to believe it.
Oh, for sure.
To actually believe it.
No. And what I'm saying is don't try to believe it because you're working against the core beliefs. What I want you to do is go in there and I want you to begin to attack and jackhammer those core beliefs that say you suck, that you're not good enough. I talk about in the book, you can try to focus on all the positive and gee, I'm this and gee, I'm that. No, because you still have all that raw sewage dumping on your head saying you're not good enough, you're not good enough. What would it take? Let me just ask you this question, point blank. What percent was your mom a good parent and what percent was your mom a bad parent?
50-50.
Let me ask you, you've already told us that you're the nice person and so forth. So is it reasonable to assume when you are assessing yourself, you tend to be extra critical, but when you're assessing other people, you tend to generally give the benefit of the doubt? Would that be a safe statement?
Yeah.
So is it reasonable to assert in this case that when you say your mom is 50% a good parent, you may be giving her the benefit of the doubt and the number may actually be a bit lower?
Yeah.
What percent was your mom a good parent if you were to just tell the fucking truth?
20.
It's a big drop. Isn't it fascinating that you felt the need to protect her 2.5 times her actual ability and worth as a parent? Why did you feel the need to protect her?
I don't know if I'm any better.
So I'm afraid that if I call mom out on what she's bad, that's an indictment of me. Let me ask you, of all the shit that your mom did wrong in her parenting of you, all the ways she fucked up, all the fucking just cruel shit or just reckless shit that she did with you, which for you, and everybody's different, which for you is worse? All the stuff that your mom did to hurt you or that she never atoned for it? Which is worse for you?
She never saw that she did anything wrong.
You didn't answer the question. You didn't answer the question.
Yeah, I know.
Answer the question. Which is worse for you? She never saw it.
The stuff she did, the actions or the inactions.
Okay. For you, it's what she did. It's not that she didn't atone. And let me ask you, if she had atoned.
It's that she didn't try. It feels like in many ways she just didn't try.
Right. The underlying
that
message.
She used fear as an excuse.
Right. She didn't give a shit. Enough of a shit about her kid. She didn't give a shit. And so she didn't try. If she had gone back and apologized and said, you know what? I didn't even fucking try. I was a fucking horseshit mom. And there's no fucking excuse. And I'm sorry. What would your response have been? How would that have felt?
Tremendous.
Oh. So she had the power to heal you. She had the power to atone for her shit. And she didn't. And yet, you told me in the opening minutes of our show, you did go back with your son. And you would go back again if you had to, presumably. So you've already stated then that you've gone out of your way, that you have broken at least one generational curse. You've already proven yourself a better mom than your mother. Am I mistaken?
I try to do at least small things.
Well, that's a big thing. You just said it would feel tremendous if your mother had done it, and you did it. So presumably, you did a tremendous thing. Yeah. And there's likely more. There's always more. I'm always, making up for mistakes that I make, and so on and so forth. So you've already proven yourself better. But the real problem is when you drop that number from 50% to 20%, because that means you're covering for your parents. You don't want to look at the fucking truth. And yes, it would indict you, but think about that. That if I indict my parents, my dead parents, if I see them, just look at the truth. Don't sugarcoat it and don't over make it bad. Just what is the truth with mom? What is the truth with dad? Look it square in the eye for what it is and let it indict you. And you want to know why it's good that it indicts you? Because then that's more you can do to heal your kids now. Your mom didn't want to look at the shit that she did because it hurts. You don't want to look at stuff about you that hurts. But what if you did? What a great fucking opportunity to heal your kids. What a massive opportunity. So if you have the courage to look at the shit your parents did to you and chose not to do for you, if you have the courage to look at that, not only can you heal your kids, but you can finally heal yourself because you'll begin to fucking realize I wasn't the problem. I was never the problem. And all this bullshit that you fuckers taught me, this wasn't me. And you let me believe it. So you simultaneously, by having the courage to look at what your parents deliberately did and deliberately chose not to do, you simultaneously heal yourself and you have the opportunity to heal your kids. Do you see the value in that?
Yeah.
Scary as fuck, but valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Kid, you are at a massive turning point in your life. You don't need me to tell you that. And what it fundamentally takes is you have to choose. Is this my life or do my parents fucking own me with their bullshit lies? You said all these seventh graders are amazing. You were amazing too. And you still are, but you don't believe it. And that's the problem because you are believing their lies that were never true to begin with. You were wonderful. You were innately wonderful.
I needed help. I was struggling and I needed more help.
Bingo.
And it wasn't available.
Bingo. The people who were supposed to do that job didn't do their fucking job. Now it's time for you to stand up. Begin to find your courage. And it's just every day. It's just each day. It's like the alcoholic who chooses not to drink today has to find the courage to not drink today. Today, you have to find the courage to call one more lawyer. Today, I have to find the courage to reapply to that master's program. Tomorrow, I'm going to do this. You said to me, with that seventh grader, in manageable steps, bite-sized steps. But that also means in your own self-work, you got to begin to go in. And what you have to do this time is look at the truth. The truth. You don't have to over sugarcoat it. You don't have to over make it worse. Just what is the truth of what was done to you? And journal about how that feels. The truth of your feelings. It's time to look at the real truth. Do you see what I'm talking about here?
I do.
Yeah, it's time. Would you be willing to stick around for a few minutes after the show?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Sure.
Shoshanna, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. You're a hell of a guest. This was great.
Thank you, Sven.
You betcha. To all of our listeners listening in, on behalf of KC and Rob the Rockets, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.